I am Haley, 35 years old, and I just watched my mother mock my supposed singlehood at our family reunion. What she didn't know was that I had been happily married for 3 years. The secret wedding band hung heavy on the chain beneath my blouse as her words cut through the air. After years of criticism, I finally decided this was the moment to reveal my hidden life. The family photo crashed to the floor as the truth spilled out. Before I tell you how my entire family discovered my secret life, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about family secrets and standing up for yourself. Growing up, my relationship with my mother was like walking on eggshells scattered across perfectly polished marble floors. Diane Anderson was the epitome of perfection in our suburban neighborhood. Every strand of her blonde hair was always in place, her clothes ironed to precision, and her reputation as the president of the local country club was untarnished. She expected nothing less than perfection from her only daughter. My father, Thomas, was the buffer between us. His gentle nature balanced my mother's sharp edges. He would wink at me across the dinner table when Mom launched into another lecture about proper posture or the importance of joining the right clubs at school. "Haley Bear," he would say, "just be yourself. That is more than enough." But when I turned 12, Dad suffered a sudden heart attack, leaving Mom and me alone in our too big house with too many expectations. After Dad died, Mom tightened her grip on my life. Every report card was scrutinized, every friend vetted, every outfit approved or disapproved with a critical eye. "Haley, Harvard doesn't accept B-plus students," she would say when I brought home anything less than perfect grades. "Haley, that skirt makes your hips look wide," she would comment as I tried on clothes for school. There was always something to improve, something to fix, something that wasn't quite right about me. By high school, I had become an expert at anticipating her criticisms. I joined all the right clubs, maintained a 4.0 GPA, and dated boys from good families that Mom approved of. David Jenkins, the son of Dad's former business partner, was her favorite. "Now there's a boy with a future," she would say, not so subtly hinting that I should consider him seriously. The fact that David had the personality of cardboard and hands that wandered too freely seemed to never factor into her assessment. The real problems began when I entered college. Mom had mapped out my entire future: an Ivy League education, a degree in law or medicine, and marriage to someone from our social circle by 25. I dutifully attended Columbia, as she wished, but chose to study English literature instead of pre-law. "Poetry won't pay the bills, Haley," she said with that disappointed sigh I had come to dread. By the time I graduated, the pressure to find the perfect match had become unbearable. Mom would arrange dinner parties, conveniently inviting the eligible sons of her friends. "Margaret's son just made partner at his law firm," she would whisper loudly enough for everyone to hear. Or, "James just bought a summer house in the Hamptons. Isn't that wonderful?" Each potential suitor was paraded before me like prize cattle at an auction. When I did date someone of my choosing, Mom found ways to sabotage the relationship. She accidentally mentioned my childhood bedwetting problem to Michael during dessert. She questioned Paul's career prospects so aggressively that he never called again. And when I brought home Tony, a brilliant art historian I met in graduate school, she simply looked him up and down and said, "I suppose some women don't mind being the breadwinner," effectively ending that relationship before it had a chance to begin. The comparisons to other daughters were constant and cutting. "Did you know Stephanie's engaged to a surgeon?" Or, "Melissa just got promoted to vice president at her firm and she still has time to volunteer at the hospital?" The unspoken message was always clear. Other daughters were succeeding where I was failing. By 25, I felt suffocated. The constant pressure, the disapproval, the feeling that I can never quite measure up to her standards had worn me down. So when a job opportunity came up in Seattle, 2,000 miles away from our Connecticut home, I jumped at the chance. Mom was furious. "Running away won't find you a husband, Haley," she said as I packed my things. "You'll end up alone if you keep making these reckless decisions." I moved anyway, telling myself it was just for a year or two, just to gain some independence and perspective. The truth was, despite everything, I still longed for her approval. Every accomplishment, every small success in my new life, I measured against the question, would this finally be enough to make Mom proud? But as the distance between us grew, physical as well as emotional, I began to breathe more freely, to discover who I was beyond the confines of her expectations. What I didn't know then was that 3,000 miles would not be far enough to escape the shadow of her disapproval, nor did I realize that my search for independence would lead me to the love that would change everything. I met Adam Hayes exactly 6 months after moving to Seattle. It was my first day at Horizon Technologies, a mid-sized software company where I had been hired as the communications director. I was lost in the maze of identical corridors, already 10 minutes late for my first meeting, when I literally crashed into him, spilling my coffee all over his wrinkled blue shirt. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, mortified as the dark stain spread across his chest. He looked down at the mess, then back at me with the most genuine smile I had ever seen. He said, "Well, this shirt was due for retirement anyway," he added, extending his hand. "Adam Hayes, lead software engineer and now walking coffee advertisement." There was something immediately disarming about him. He was tall, with unruly dark hair that looked like he had forgotten to comb it, glasses that kept sliding down his nose, and a relaxed demeanor that contrasted sharply with the high-strung personalities I had grown up around. Adam showed me to my meeting and then offered to give me a proper tour of the office afterward. That tour somehow extended to lunch, where I learned he had grown up in a small town in Oregon, the son of a high school teacher and a nurse. He had put himself through college with scholarships and part-time jobs. And now, at 32, he was respected in his field, but completely uninterested in climbing the corporate ladder. "I just want to build things that help people," he said simply. The titles and corner offices never interested me much. I could already hear my mother's assessment. No ambition, no family connections, probably no savings account. But something about his authenticity drew me in. We became friends, first grabbing lunch together in the office cafeteria, exchanging emails about work projects, and occasionally meeting up with other colleagues for happy hour after work. It was during one of those happy hours, 3 months after we met, that Adam and I found ourselves the last two people at the table. Our conversation drifted from work to books to music to childhood dreams. I told him about my secret passion for photography, something I had abandoned because Mom thought it was a hobby, not a career. He listened with genuine interest, then insisted we leave immediately to buy me a camera. "Life is too short not to do what you love, even if it's just on the weekends," he said as we left the electronics store, me clutching a box containing my first professional camera. That night, as he walked me to my door, Adam kissed me the first time. It was gentle and questioning, giving me every opportunity to pull away. Instead, I leaned in, feeling something click into place that I hadn't known was missing. Our relationship blossomed over the next 6 months. We hiked through the lush forest surrounding Seattle, explored tiny bookstores tucked away in forgotten corners of the city, and spent rainy Sundays cooking elaborate meals in his small but cozy apartment. Adam encouraged my photography, framing my pictures and hanging them on his walls, proudly showing them to friends who visited. For the first time in my life, I felt seen for who I was, not for who someone wanted me to be. Adam never tried to change me or mold me into some idealized version of myself. He loved my quirks, listened to my dreams, and made me feel like I was enough just as I was. Of course, I knew the honeymoon phase would not last forever. The real test would come when Adam met my mother. I put it off as long as possible, making excuses about busy schedules and bad timing. But when Mom announced she would be visiting Seattle for a conference, there was no avoiding it any longer. I spent days preparing Adam for what was coming. She can be critical, I warned. She has very specific ideas about the kind of person I should be with. Adam squeezed my hand. Haley, I love you. Your mom might not approve of me right away, but I'm not going anywhere. We'll figure it out together. The dinner was every bit the disaster I had anticipated. Mom arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early, immaculately dressed in a designer suit that made my carefully chosen outfit look shabby by comparison. Her eyes narrowed slightly when Adam stood to greet her, taking in his casual button-down shirt and lack of tie. "So, Adam," she began after the briefest of introductions, "Haley tells me you work with computers. Is there much future in that?" It was the first volley in what became a 3-hour interrogation. She questioned his education. A state school. How quaint. His family background. Teachers are so underappreciated, though I suppose it explains your salary expectations. And his 5-year plan. So, no aspirations to management. How unusual for a man your age. Adam remained polite throughout, answering her questions thoughtfully and even attempting to find common ground. But Mom was not interested in common ground. She was conducting an assessment, and it was clear from her tight smiles and pointed questions that Adam was failing spectacularly. By dessert, I was fighting back tears of humiliation. When Adam excused himself to use the restroom, Mom leaned across the table. "Darling, he seems nice enough for a casual relationship, but surely you cannot be serious about him. He has no connections, no real ambition. You would be supporting him within 5 years. Mark my words." When Adam returned, she switched tactics, regaling him with stories of the suitable men in our social circle back east. "William just made junior partner at his father's firm," she said, smiling at me pointedly. "He always asks about you, Haley." Later that night, after Mom had returned to her hotel, Adam held me as I cried. "I'm so sorry," I kept saying. "She was horrible to you." "Hey," he said gently, wiping my tears with his thumb. "I didn't fall in love with your mother. I fell in love with you. And if it takes her some time to warm up to me, that's okay. We have time." But as the months passed, it became clear that Mom had no intention of warming up to Adam. She began calling more frequently, always with news about someone from back home who was getting engaged, promoted, or buying property. "Life is moving on without you, Haley," she would say. "Don't waste your youth on dead-end relationships." Adam never complained, but I could see the toll it was taking on him, the way his smile would fade when my phone rang and Mom's name appeared on the screen, the quiet resignation in his eyes when I canceled our plans because Mom had suddenly decided to visit. Despite everything, he remained patient, loving, and supportive, and I fell more deeply in love with him every day, even as I worried about what the future might hold for us. 6 months into my relationship with Adam, Mom's interference shifted from passive-aggressive comments to active sabotage. It began with what she called a little surprise. She had arranged for James Whitmore, the son of her bridge partner and a recently divorced investment banker, to accidentally be in Seattle during her next visit. "I thought we could all have dinner," she said innocently over the phone. "James is staying at the Four Seasons for a conference, and he remembered how you two hit it off at the Millers' Christmas party years ago." I had no recollection of ever meeting James Whitmore, but that didn't stop Mom from orchestrating an awkward dinner where she practically pushed me into his lap while Adam watched in stunned silence. James, to his credit, seemed as uncomfortable as I was, especially when Mom began listing my accomplishments as if reading from a resume.
Haley graduated cum laude from Columbia. She could have gone to law school, but she decided to explore her options first. Such a shame. But it's never too late to go back, is it? After that dinner, the floodgates opened. Suddenly, Mom was connecting me with every eligible bachelor who happened to be passing through Seattle. There was Michael, the neurosurgeon attending a medical conference, Christopher, the hedge fund manager expanding his West Coast operations, and Tyler, the recently relocated attorney whose mother just happened to be Mom's former roommate at Vessar. The phone calls became more frequent and more pointed. Haley, darling, I'm just concerned about your future. You're approaching 30. Do you really want to waste these crucial years on someone who will never fit into our world? Adam is my world now, Mom. I only be met with a heavy sigh. You always were stubborn, just like your father. Look how that turned out for him, working himself to death in a job that never appreciated him. That comment, bringing my father into it, broke something inside me. Don't talk about Dad that way, I said, my voice shaking. He was happy. He loved his work and his life. Not everything is about status and connections. Clearly, Adam has been filling your head with this bohemian nonsense, she replied coldly. Your father could have been so much more if he had listened to me. I will not stand by and watch you make the same mistakes. The tension reached a breaking point during the annual family reunion at my Aunt Patricia's lake house. Mom had insisted I come alone, claiming it was family only, but I knew it was because she didn't want to introduce Adam to the extended family. Against my better judgment, I agreed, not wanting to cause a scene. I should have known she had ulterior motives. She had arranged for Bradley Wilson, the recently divorced son of her bridge partner, who was apparently looking for a nice girl to settle down with. Bradley was handsome in a generic way, with perfectly coiffed hair and a country club tan. He was also arrogant, condescending, and couldn't stop talking about his Porsche. During dinner, Mom clinked her glass to get everyone's attention. I have a little announcement, she said, smiling broadly. Bradley has just been made partner at Wilson & Associates, and he has generously offered to give Haley some career advice. Isn't that wonderful? Before I could respond, she added, Who knows? Maybe he can convince her to move back east where she belongs. The entire table turned to look at me, expectant smiles on their faces. I felt trapped, cornered like an animal. Actually, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, I am very happy with my job in Seattle, and I'm in a serious relationship. Mom's smile froze. Haley is being modest. This little marketing job is just a stepping stone, isn't it, darling? And as for this boy she's seeing, well, summer flings are so nice, but winter is coming. The table erupted in laughter while my face burned with humiliation. Later that night, as Bradley cornered me on the porch with thinly veiled propositions disguised as career opportunities, I texted Adam. I can't do this anymore. Can you come get me? 3 hours later, Adam's modest Honda pulled into the circular driveway of my aunt's lakeside mansion. The look on Mom's face when I introduced him to everyone and announced we were leaving together was a mixture of shock, anger, and embarrassment. You are making a scene, Haley? She hissed as I gathered my things. No, Mom, you have been making a scene since the day I introduced you to Adam, I replied loud enough for nearby relatives to hear. The drive back to Seattle was tense. For the first time since we had been together, Adam did not try to smooth things over or look for the bright side. I cannot keep doing this, Haley, he said finally, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I love you, but your mother is never going to accept me, and I cannot spend the rest of our lives being treated like I am not good enough. Are you breaking up with me? I asked, my heart pounding. He sighed deeply. No, I'm asking you to make a choice. Either we find a way to set boundaries with your mother, or this relationship is not going to survive. The next few weeks were some of the hardest of my life. I tried explaining to Mom that her behavior was damaging my relationship, but she dismissed my concerns. If your relationship cannot withstand a mother's natural concern, then it is not strong enough to begin with, she said. Meanwhile, tensions with Adam continued to grow. We began arguing about small things, the pressure from my family, casting a shadow over our once easy relationship. I would wake up in the middle of the night, crying silently while Adam slept beside me, torn between the two people I loved most in the world. The breaking point came when Mom showed up unannounced at my apartment one Sunday morning. Adam and I had been enjoying a lazy breakfast when the doorbell rang. There stood Mom, designer suitcase in hand, announcing she had decided to spend some quality time with me. For the next week, she dominated every conversation, criticized everything from my apartment decor to my job performance, and made it impossible for Adam and I to have any private time. When Adam suggested we all go to dinner to clear the air, Mom declined, claiming she had a headache, only to call an hour later asking me to come home because she was feeling lonely. After Mom finally left, Adam and I had the biggest fight of our relationship. "She's never going to stop, Haley," he said, pacing our small living room. "She will keep interfering until she gets what she wants, which is us breaking up." "What am I supposed to do?" I cried. "She is my mother, and I want to be your husband," he shouted back, then stopped abruptly, looking as stunned by the words as I was. In the stunned silence that followed, we both realized we had reached a crossroads. Something had to change, or we would lose each other. Neither of us knew then just how dramatic that change would be, or how it would alter the course of both our lives forever. 2 months after our fight, Adam and I took a weekend trip to the San Juan Islands. The tension with my mother had created a strain between us that we were both eager to escape, if only for a few days. We stayed in a small cottage overlooking the water, spent our days hiking through forests of towering pines, and our evenings watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. On our second night, Adam suggested a walk along the beach after dinner. The moon was full, casting a silver path across the dark water. We walked hand in hand, the only sound the gentle lapping of waves against the shore and the distant cry of seagulls. "Do you remember the first time we went to the coast?" Adam asked, stopping to pick up a smooth stone and skip it across the water. I smiled at the memory. "You tried to impress me with your surfing skills and ended up with a bloody nose." He laughed. "Not my finest moment, but you took care of me." And that is when I knew. Knew what? That you were the one I wanted to spend my life taking care of and being taken care of by. Before I could respond, Adam was down on one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a ring with a modest diamond surrounded by tiny sapphires that matched the color of the sea behind him. "Haley Anderson, I have loved you since the moment you spilled coffee all over my favorite shirt. I love your kind heart, your quiet strength, your determination to see the good in people, even when they make it difficult." He took a deep breath. "I know things have been hard with your family, but I promise to stand by you through whatever comes next. Will you marry me?" Tears filled my eyes as I nodded, unable to speak. When he slipped the ring onto my finger, it felt right in a way few things in my life ever had. We spent the rest of the evening making plans, dreaming about our future together, deliberately avoiding the elephant in the room, how my mother would react. Reality crashed back in the moment we returned to Seattle. The weight of what was coming settled on my shoulders like a physical burden. I knew I had to tell my mother about the engagement, and I knew it would not go well. After 3 days of putting it off, I finally called her on a Wednesday evening. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the phone. "Haley, darling, what a nice surprise," she answered, her voice warmed for once. I was just thinking about you. Patricia's daughter got engaged to the most wonderful boy from Greenwich. His family owns that publishing company. You know the one. I took a deep breath. Mom, I have some news too. Adam asked me to marry him and I said yes. The silence that followed was so complete, I thought the call had dropped. Then came her voice, cold and controlled. I see. And when did this happen? Last weekend. We went to the San Juan Islands. And have you set a date? Not yet. We were thinking maybe next spring or so. There's still time to reconsider, she cut in again. Darling, engagements break all the time. No one would think less of you. I gripped the phone tighter. Mom, I am not breaking the engagement. I love Adam and we're getting married. Haley Elizabeth Anderson, she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You can't possibly be serious about marrying that nobody. What about your future? What about children? Do you want them growing up without the advantages you had? Adam is not a nobody, I said, feeling my temper rising. He is brilliant and kind and loves me for who I am, not who he wants me to be. Is that a dig at me? She asked sharply. After everything I've done for you, I've only ever wanted what is best for you. No, Mom, you have only ever wanted what you think is best for me. There's a difference. The conversation deteriorated from there. Mom alternated between icy fury and tearful manipulation, telling me I was throwing away my future, that I would regret this decision, that I was breaking her heart. Your father would be so disappointed, she said, delivering the cruelest blow she could think of. Dad would have loved Adam, I countered, tears streaming down my face. He would have seen what a good man he is. Well, your father isn't here, is he? And I'm telling you, this is a mistake. If you marry that man, Haley, don't expect me to be there. In fact, don't expect me to be in your life. All together. Her final words left me cold. If you choose him over your family, Haley, don't ever call me mother. The line went dead, and I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. That is how Adam found me an hour later when he came home from work. He held me as I told him everything through hiccuping sobs. She said she would disown me, Adam. She said not to call her mother anymore. Adam's face was grim, but his voice was gentle. Haley, I love you more than anything, but I need you to be sure. If you want to call off the engagement, I will understand. I looked up at him through swollen eyes. Is that what you want? No, he said firmly. I want to marry you. I want us to build a life together, but I don't want to be the reason you lose your family. I thought about my mother's ultimatum, about her constant criticism and manipulation, about the way she had never accepted the choices I made for myself. Then I thought about Adam, who had loved and supported me unconditionally, who had never tried to
change me or mold me into someone I was not. You are not the reason, I said, finally. She is. And I am not calling off the engagement, Adam. I want to marry you. But what? I took a deep breath, the kernel of an idea forming. But I do not think I can face a big wedding with her not there, or worse, with her there making everyone miserable. What would you think about eloping? Just us, somewhere beautiful without all the drama. Adam studied my face carefully. Are you sure that is what you want? Not just to avoid your mother, but really what you want for our wedding. I nodded, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over me. Yes, just us making promises to each other. That is all that matters to me. 2 weeks later, we were married in a small ceremony on the same beach where Adam had proposed.
His parents were there, along with his sister and her husband, and my two closest friends from Seattle. It was simple, intimate, and perfect in every way, except for the hollow space where my family should have been. As we exchanged vows with the sound of waves crashing behind us, I made another silent promise to myself. I would not let my mother's absence taint this day or our future together. I was choosing happiness, choosing love, choosing Adam. It was the hardest decision I had ever made. But standing there, looking into the eyes of the man who loved me completely, I knew it was the right one. What I did not know then was that this decision would set in motion a chain of events that would have forced me to live a double life for the next 3 years. A life of secrets and omissions that would eventually collide in the most dramatic way possible. Our honeymoon was a week in a small coastal town in Oregon, not far from where Adam grew up. We stayed in a charming bed and breakfast, spent our days exploring tide pools and hiking coastal trails, and our evenings planning our future together. For that one perfect week, I did not think about my mother or the family I had left behind. It was just Adam and me starting our life together. Reality returned when we got back to Seattle. My mother had called twice during our honeymoon, leaving messages as if nothing had happened. "Haley, darling, call me back when you get a chance. Janet Williams is hosting a charity gala next month, and I thought you might want to fly back for it. Her son Stephen just finished his residency at Mass General." I listened to her messages with a mix of sadness and disbelief. It was as if she had completely erased our last conversation from her memory, along with my engagement to Adam. When I finally called her back, I carefully avoided any mention of the wedding. "I cannot make it to Janet's gala. Work is really busy right now." "Always work with you," she sighed. "Well, when are you coming to visit then? It has been months." This began the strangest chapter of my life. I kept in touch with my mother through carefully choreographed phone calls and occasional visits east, during which I would remove my wedding ring and slip it on a chain around my neck, hidden beneath my clothes. Adam never came with me on these trips, understanding that it was easier this way, though I could see the hurt in his eyes each time I packed my bags. When Mom visited Seattle, which thankfully was rare, I would temporarily move back into my old apartment, which we had kept specifically for this purpose, Adam staying with friends until she left. The apartment was maintained as if I still lived there alone, complete with a single toothbrush in the bathroom and no male clothing in sight. "This place could use a man's touch," Mom would often comment, looking around the deliberately sparse decor. "Maybe if you spent more time at home instead of at that office, you might actually meet someone." I would smile tightly and change the subject, the weight of my secret life growing heavier with each lie. Meanwhile, Adam and I built a real life together in a cozy house we purchased in a quiet neighborhood north of the city. It had a small garden where Adam planted vegetables and a spare bedroom that we talked about turning into a nursery someday. We made friends with our neighbors, joined a local book club, and settled into the comfortable routines of married life. My career at Horizon Technologies flourished. I was promoted to Senior Communications Director, leading a team of 5 and overseeing all the company's public relations efforts. Adam continued to excel in his role as well, developing software that earned recognition throughout the industry. Every success, every happy moment was shadowed by the knowledge that I was hiding half my life from my mother. There were times when I almost told her the truth, when the weight of the deception became almost unbearable. But then she would make some cutting remark about Adam or my career choices, and I would remember why I had made this decision in the first place. Our second anniversary coincided with some unexpected news. I was pregnant. Adam and I had been trying for a few months, but the reality of it still took my breath away. As the doctor confirmed what the home test had suggested, Adam squeezed my hand so tightly I thought he might break it, his face a mixture of joy and disbelief. "We are going to be parents," he whispered as we left the doctor's office, one hand protectively on my still flat stomach. The pregnancy brought our double life into sharp focus. How could I hide a child from my mother? Would I pretend to be a single mother? Would I continue the elaborate charade now with a baby involved? The question swirled in my mind as my body changed and our baby grew. We found out we were having a girl during the 20-week ultrasound. Adam cried when the technician pointed to the screen and said, "Congratulations, it's a girl." That night, as we lay in bed discussing names, the reality of what I was doing hit me with full force. "My mother doesn't even know she's going to be a grandmother," I said, tears filling my eyes. "What kind of person does that make me?" Adam held me close. "It makes you someone who had to make an impossible choice. You did what you had to do to protect yourself and our family. That doesn't make you a bad person." Haley Lily Grace Hayes was born on a rainy Tuesday in October. 7 pounds, 2 ounces of perfect baby girl with Adam's dark hair and my green eyes. Holding her for the first time, I felt a love so fierce and protective it took my breath away. I also felt a renewed sense of grief for what my mother was missing and what Lily would miss by not knowing her grandmother. I sent Mom a text the day after Lily was born, a carefully worded message that made no mention of Adam or marriage. "Mom, I have some news. You're a grandmother. I had a baby girl yesterday, Lily Grace. We're both doing well." Her response came hours later, a flurry of shocked questions and barely concealed judgment. "A baby, Haley? What are you talking about? Whose baby? Are you saying you had a child out of wedlock? Who's the father? Why am I just hearing about this now?" I didn't answer her calls for 3 days, using the excuse of recovery and newborn care to avoid the conversation I knew was coming. When I finally did speak to her, I gave her the edited version of the truth. Yes, I had a baby. No, I wasn't in a relationship with the father. Technically true, as I was in a marriage, not just a relationship. Yes, I was planning to raise her on my own with the support of my husband, whom I didn't mention. Mom was predictably horrified. This is what happens when you move across the country away from your family and proper influences. I knew Seattle would lead to trouble. "Well, you have made your bed, Haley. I suppose now you will have to lie in it." She didn't ask to visit, and I didn't invite her. Instead, she sent an impersonal gift basket with expensive baby clothes and a card signed grandmother rather than any personal message. It sat unopened in our hallway for days, a symbol of the gulf between us. As Lily grew from newborn to infant to toddler, the weight of our secret life became increasingly difficult to bear. Adam's parents visited regularly, doting on
their granddaughter and filling our home with laughter and love. My side of the family remained a conspicuous absence, explained away to friends with vague references to complicated family dynamics. The logistics of maintaining our charade grew more challenging. When Mom did occasionally visit Seattle, the temporary moves back to my old apartment now included packing up not just my things, but all evidence of Lily as well. I would tell Mom that Lily was staying with a friend for a few days or that she was with her father for visitation. The lies piled upon lies, creating a precarious tower that I knew could not stand forever. Each deception required another to support it until I could barely keep track of what I had told to whom. The strain began to show in my relationship with Adam, in the dark circles under my eyes, in the way I would sometimes find myself staring at Lily and wondering if I was teaching her that it was okay to hide who you really are. By the time Lily turned 2, I was exhausted by the double life. Adam and I had begun discussing whether it was time to tell my mother the truth, to stop living in the shadows regardless of the consequences. But every time I worked up the courage, something would happen to remind me why I had made this choice in the first place. A cutting remark from Mom about single motherhood, a pointed question about when I was going to get my life together and find a proper father for Lily. As Lily's third birthday approached, and my 35th loomed on the horizon, the annual family reunion invitation arrived in my email. This year, it would be held at my mother's house, a command performance I knew I could not avoid without raising suspicions. Little did I know that this reunion would be the catalyst that would finally bring my two worlds crashing together, forcing me to confront the truth I had been hiding for 3 long years. I arrived at my mother's Connecticut home on a Friday afternoon in June, alone, as always. Lily and Adam had remained in Seattle, a separation that felt more painful than ever. Mom greeted me at the door with air kisses and a critical once-over. "Darling, you look tired," she said, ushering me into the foyer. "Is that child keeping you up at night still? At 3, she really should be sleeping through." "Lily sleeps fine, Mom," I replied, setting down my suitcase. "It has just been busy at work." The house was immaculate as always, every surface gleaming, fresh flowers arranged just so in crystal vases. Family photos lined the hallway, carefully curated snapshots of a life that existed only in my mother's mind. There I was in my graduation cap and gown, standing between Mom and Dad, his arm around my shoulders, his smile proud and genuine. There was Mom at some charity event, elegant in black tie attire. Conspicuously absent were any photos of Lily, my own daughter, relegated to a secret that did not fit the narrative of our perfect family. The reunion officially began that evening for dinner for the immediate family, the extended relatives set to arrive the following day. Aunt Patricia was there with her husband Robert, my cousins Jessica and Matthew with their spouses, and my Uncle James, my father's younger brother, who had flown in from Chicago. Dinner was a formal affair, served in the dining room I had always found intimidating as a child. Mom had prepared her famous beef Wellington, a dish she reserved for special occasions, and the conversation flowed along with the expensive wine Robert had brought. "So, Haley," Aunt Patricia began as we moved to dessert, "how was life as a single mother? It must be so difficult managing everything on your own." I felt my cheeks flush. "It is challenging sometimes, but we are doing well." "And the father?" Uncle James asked, always direct. "Is he in the picture at all?" Before I could answer, Mom cut in smoothly. "Haley prefers not to discuss that situation, James. Some decisions once made are best left in the past." The way she said it, with that slight edge to her voice, made it clear what she thought of my situation. I gripped my fork tightly, fighting the urge to tell them all the truth then and there. The evening progressed with more subtle digs and probing questions disguised as concern. By the time I retreated to my old bedroom, I was emotionally exhausted. I called Adam, speaking in hushed tones, even though my door was closed. "I don't know if I can do this for another 2 days," I confessed, curled up on my childhood bed. "Mom keeps making these comments and everyone looks at me like I'm some cautionary tale." "Then tell them," Adam said simply. "Tell them the truth, Haley. Or come home. You don't have to stay there and take this." I sighed, looking around the room that had once been my sanctuary and now felt like a museum to a person I no longer was. I can't just leave. That would only make things worse, and I'm not ready to tell them yet. I need to find the right moment. The next day brought the arrival of the extended family, cousins and second cousins and great aunts filling the house with noise and activity. I moved through the crowd, answering the same questions about Seattle and work and Lily, carefully navigating around any mention of my personal life. It was during the formal dinner that evening that everything came to a head. Mom had seated me between Cousin Rachel, who had recently made partner at her law firm, and Great Aunt Eleanor, who had a habit of dispensing unsolicited life advice. The table was beautifully set, candles flickering in silver holders, the good china and crystal brought out for the occasion. Mom stood at the head of the table, raising her glass for a toast. "To family," she said, smiling benevolently at the gathered relatives. Murmurs of agreement rippled around the table as everyone drank. Then Mom continued, "And to new beginnings. Jessica and Matthew are expecting their first child in December, making me a great aunt at last." "Congratulations!" erupted as Jessica blushed happily, her husband squeezing her hand. I felt a stab of pain, thinking of Lily, who was already 3 and had never been acknowledged in this way by her own grandmother. "And of course," Mom added, her gaze sliding to me, "we continue to hope that Haley will find her way. 35 and still single. But as they say, it's never too late."
Laughter rippled around the table, indulgent and slightly pitying. I sat frozen, the wine glass halfway to my lips, as Mom continued. Though perhaps it's time to accept that some women are simply meant for career success rather than family life. Not everyone can have it all, after all. Actually, Mom, I heard myself say, my voice clear and steady despite the thundering of my heart, I'm not single. The table fell silent, all eyes turning to me. Mom's smile remained fixed, though her eyes narrowed slightly. Darling, what are you talking about? Have you been keeping secrets from your mother? There it was, the perfect opening, delivered with just enough saccharine concern to mask the accusation beneath. Something snapped inside me. 3 years of lies and pretense and hidden resentment finally broke free. Yes, I have, I said, setting down my glass carefully. I've been married for 3 years. The silence that followed was absolute. Mom's smile froze on her face, a mask of confusion and disbelief. What are you saying, Haley? This is not funny. It's not a joke, Mom. I married Adam Hayes 3 years ago. The same Adam you said wasn't good enough for me. The same Adam who is Lily's father and my husband. Around the table, relatives exchanged shocked glances. Aunt Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. Uncle James let out a low whistle. That's not possible, Mom said, her voice rising slightly. You would have told me. You wouldn't have kept something like that from your own mother. I laughed, a sound without humor. Wouldn't I? You told me if I married him, I should never call you mother again. You gave me an ultimatum, and I made my choice. I never said that, she protested, looking around the table for support. Haley is exaggerating. We had a disagreement about her boyfriend. That's all.
Mother anymore. So I did what you asked. I never told you I got married. I never told you Adam is Lily's father. I never told you about our house or our life together or any of it. Mom's hand trembled as she reached for the small clutch beside her plate. She opened it, removing a silver-framed photo. She always carried a family portrait taken at my college graduation. This is our family, she said, holding it up like evidence in a trial. Just us. That was 10 years ago, Mom. This is our family now. I pulled out my phone, opening to a recent photo of Adam, Lily, and me at the park, our faces close together, smiling in the sunlight. I held it out to her. Mom stared at it for a long moment. Then suddenly the frame slipped from her fingers, crashing to the table and sending shards of glass across the pristine white tablecloth. You lied to me, she whispered, her face pale. For 3 years, you lied to my face. Yes, I admitted. I did. Because you gave me no choice. You made me choose between the man I love and my mother. And it broke my heart. But I chose Adam, and it was the right choice. He loves me for who I am, not for who he wants me to be. Mom pushed back from the table abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. I think you should leave, she said, her voice shaking with anger, or hurt, or both. If this is how little our family means to you, that you would deceive us this way, then perhaps you do not belong here after all. I stood slowly, looking around at the shocked faces of my relatives. I am sorry you had to find out this way, I said to them. I never wanted to lie to any of you, but Mom made it impossible for me to tell the truth. As I turned to leave, Uncle James spoke up. Diane, this is ridiculous. She is your daughter. Are you really going to throw her out for getting married? Stay out of this, James, Mom snapped. You have no idea what she has done. What she has done is create a family. Is that really so unforgivable? Mom did not answer, her back rigid as she stared out the dining room window. I gathered my purse and walked to the door, pausing for a moment. For what it's worth, Mom, I never wanted it to be this way.
I always hoped someday you would accept Adam, accept us. I guess I was wrong. I walked out of the dining room with as much dignity as I could muster, though my legs felt weak and my hands were shaking. As I climbed the stairs to pack my things, I heard the murmur of voices rise behind me, arguments breaking out among the family members. In my room, I quickly threw my belongings into my suitcase, tears blurring my vision. I called Adam, who answered on the first ring. "Haley, what is wrong?" "I told them," I said, my voice breaking. "I told everyone about us, about our marriage. Mom kicked me out." "Are you okay? Where are you going to go?" "I'll get a hotel for tonight and fly home tomorrow," I said, zipping the suitcase closed. "I'm so sorry, Haley," he said softly. "I wish I was there with you." "Me too," I whispered. As I carried my suitcase down the stairs, I found Uncle James waiting in the foyer. "I'll drive you to a hotel," he said, taking the bag from me. "This is not right, what Diane is doing." "Thank you," I managed, grateful for the small kindness. As we walked to the door, Mom appeared from the dining room. Her face was composed now, but her eyes were red. "So, you're really leaving?" she said, not quite a question. "I asked you to," I replied simply. She nodded once, a sharp, jerky movement. "You have made your choice clear, Haley." "No, Mom. You made the choice for both of us 3 years ago. I just lived with the consequences." I walked out the door without looking back, though I could feel her eyes on me as Uncle James loaded my suitcase into his car. As we pulled away from the house, I caught a glimpse of her in the doorway, a small, rigid figure framed by light, watching her daughter leave for what might be the last time. In the car, Uncle James glanced at me. "Your father would have liked Adam, you know. He never cared about all that status nonsense your mother is obsessed with." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. We drove in silence to the hotel where Adam had already booked me a room. Before I got out of the car, Uncle James squeezed my hand. "Give her time, Haley. She's stubborn, but she loves you. Eventually, she'll realize what she's losing." I didn't believe him then, too raw from the confrontation to imagine any path to reconciliation. As I checked into the hotel alone, my family celebrating without me just miles away, I felt a profound sense of loss and, surprisingly, relief. The secret was out. The double life was over. Whatever came next, at least I would face it honestly, with Adam by my side. The flight back to Seattle the next morning was a blur. I moved through the airport in a daze, replaying the previous night's events, analyzing every word, every expression, wondering if I could have handled things differently. By the time the plane touched down, I'd cycled through grief, anger, guilt, and back again multiple times. Adam and Lily were waiting at the arrivals gate, my daughter bouncing with excitement, a homemade sign reading "Welcome home, Mommy," clutched in her small hands. The sight of them, my real family, broke through the numbness that had enveloped me since leaving Connecticut. I swept Lily into my arms, breathing in her sweet scent, feeling her little arms wrapped tightly around my neck. "Missed you, Mommy," she whispered, and I had to bite my lip from keeping from crying. Adam embraced us both, his steady presence anchoring me. "How are you holding up?" he asked quietly as we walked to the car. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "It feels like I've lost her all over again, but also like maybe I lost her years ago and just didn't want to admit it." The days that followed were strangely peaceful. The weight of secrecy had been lifted. And despite the pain of my mother's rejection, I felt lighter somehow. I threw myself into being present with Lily, savoring ordinary moments that had often been overshadowed by the stress of maintaining my double life. Morning cuddles, bedtime stories, weekend trips to the park all took on a new sweetness now that they weren't tainted by lies. A week after the confrontation, I received a text from Aunt Patricia. Your mother is not speaking to anyone who defended you, but several of us would like to keep in touch. Is that okay with you? I sent back my email address and phone number, touched by the small rebellion of my relatives. Over the next few weeks, I received messages from various family members, some curious about my secret life, others simply expressing support. Uncle James sent photos from family gatherings I had missed over the years, along with stories about my father that Mom had never shared. From my mother, there was only silence. I hadn't really expected anything else yet. Each day that passed without contact deepened the ache of loss. Adam watched me check my phone obsessively, his eyes filled with concern, but he never pushed or offered empty reassurances. He simply loved me through it, steady and patient as always. A month after the reunion, a letter arrived in our mailbox addressed to me in my mother's distinctive handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before finding the courage to open it. Haley, it began, no dear or other affectionate greeting. I've been thinking about what happened at the reunion. While I can't condone the deception you practiced for 3 years, I recognize that my own actions may have contributed to your decision. My father always said I was too rigid, too concerned with appearances. Perhaps he was right. The letter continued for several pages, alternating between justified anger at my lies and reluctant acknowledgement of her role in creating the situation. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was more self-reflection than I had ever seen from her. I don't know where we go from here, she concluded, but I find I'm not ready to lose my only child or to continue missing out on my granddaughter's life. If you are willing, perhaps we could speak on the phone.
Sometime. I cried as I read the letter, then read it again with Adam, analyzing every word for hidden meanings or manipulations. In the end, we decided together that it represented a genuine, if imperfect, olive branch. I called her the following Sunday. The conversation was stilted and awkward, both of us carefully avoiding anything that might trigger another confrontation. We talked about the weather, about her garden, about Lily's preschool. It was superficial, but it was a start. Those Sunday calls became a weekly ritual. Gradually, the conversations grew longer and more substantial. She asked questions about Adam, tentative at first, then with increasing interest. I shared stories about our life together, our home, our plans for the future. She listened, occasionally offering comments that revealed she was still processing the reality of my choices. "You own a house?" she asked during one call, surprise evident in her voice. "With a garden?" "Yes, Mom. Adam grows vegetables. Lily has her own little patch where she plants sunflowers." A pause. "Your father always wanted a vegetable garden. I never had the patience for it." 3 months after the reunion, Mom asked if she could visit. Adam and I discussed it at length, weighing the potential benefits against the risk of reopening old wounds. In the end, we decided to invite her, but on our terms this time. "You would be welcome to visit," I told her during our next call, "but you need to understand that this is our home, our life. I need you to respect that, to respect Adam as my husband and Lily's father." "I understand," she said, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. "I would like to try, Haley. I really would." Her first visit was tense, but civil. She arrived with an expensive doll for Lily and a bottle of wine for dinner, both peace offerings in their way. When Adam greeted her at the door, she stiffly extended her hand,
which he took with a warm smile that never faltered despite her obvious discomfort. Lily, unaware of the complex history between her grandmother and parents, charmed Mom with her curiosity and energy. By the end of the first day, I caught Mom smiling genuinely as Lily showed her the collection of rocks she had gathered from our garden. That evening, after Lily was in bed, the three of us sat in the living room, the conversation halting and careful. Finally, Mom set down her wine glass and looked directly at Adam. "I owe you an apology," she said formally. "I judged you unfairly, based on superficial criteria that have nothing to do with your character or your ability to make my daughter happy. It is clear to me now that you have done that, made her happy in ways I failed to recognize." Adam nodded, accepting her words with grace. "Thank you for saying that, Diane. All I've ever wanted is for Haley to be happy. We both want that." Mom turned to me then, her expression softening. "I have missed so much of your life, Haley. 3 years of marriage, Lily's first steps. I will always regret that." "I regret the lies," I admitted. "I hated living that way, always hiding half my life from you, but I did not see another option at the time." "There is blame enough for both of us. Perhaps we can do better going forward." It was the closest thing to a mutual understanding we had ever reached. The visit ended with tentative plans for Mom to return for Lily's birthday in October and a promise to send regular updates and photos in the meantime. The healing process was slow, and not without setbacks. Mom occasionally slipped into old patterns, making subtle digs about our modest home or questioning our parenting choices. But now, instead of swallowing my hurt or avoiding confrontation, I would calmly set boundaries. "That comment was hurtful, Mom. If you continue speaking to us that way, we will have to end this visit early." To my surprise, she usually backed down, sometimes even apologizing. It seemed the fear of losing her connection to me and Lily outweighed her need to control and criticize. It was not perfect, but it was progress. As the months passed, our relationship slowly transformed into something new, something healthier. Mom began to show genuine interest in Adam's work, in our life in Seattle, in the choices we had made together. She still occasionally expressed views that made me cringe, but the sharp edge of judgment had softened. On Lily's 4th birthday, Mom flew out for the celebration. She brought a photo album she had created, filled with pictures of me as a child, of Dad, of our family before everything fell apart. "For Lily," she said, "so she knows where she comes from." That night, after the party, I found Mom sitting on our back porch, looking at the stars. I joined her, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders against the autumn chill. "Thank you for coming," I said softly. "It meant a lot to Lily and to me." She nodded, still looking up at the sky. "Your father would have loved her so much, and he would have been proud of you, Haley. The life you've built, the mother you have become. I have not said that enough." We sat in companionable silence for a while, the most peaceful moment we had shared in years. Finally, she spoke again. "I was wrong, about Adam, about what makes a good life, about so many things. I was trying to protect you from disappointment, from struggle. Your father and I, we had our challenges. I wanted something easier for you." "Life is not easy, Mom," I said gently. "But having people who love you for who you really are makes the hard parts bearable. That is what Adam gives me. What Dad gave you, I think." She reached over and squeezed my hand, a rare physical gesture from a woman who had always maintained a certain distance. "Yes," she said simply. The journey of healing with my mother continues to this day. We still have moments of tension, old wounds that occasionally reopen, but we have found a way forward based on honesty, respect, and the mutual recognition that family connections are too precious to sacrifice for pride or control. Through this difficult journey, I have learned invaluable lessons. I have learned that true love accepts you as you are, without conditions or expectations. I have learned that sometimes the hardest choices, the ones that hurt the most in the moment, lead to the greatest growth. I have learned that honesty, even when painful, is ultimately less destructive than deception. Most importantly, I have learned to define family not by blood or obligation, but by love and choice. Adam and Lily are my first family, the one I chose and created. My mother is learning to be part of that family on new terms, ones that respect our autonomy and dignity. As I watched Lily playing with her grandmother in our garden and Adam's arm around my waist, I feel a sense of peace that once seemed impossible. The road here was longer and more painful than I ever imagined it would be. But standing in this moment, I know that every step was necessary. Our lives are shaped not just by the love we receive, but the boundaries we set, the truths we tell, and the courage we find to be authentically ourselves, even when it costs us dearly. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves and others is to stand firm in our truth, even when it hurts, because only then can real healing begin. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between your family's expectations and your own happiness? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this resonated with you. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful outcomes.